The rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is the most common composition rule taught. It's fairly easy to understand and is a great way to focus on composition when starting out. Probably the most talked about rule in photography, the rule of thirds, is Composition 101. This rule is a great rule to learn first as it will set the stage for other composition rules. The premise is to divide your image into 9 equal parts by placing 2 lines equally across horizontally and 2 lines equally across vertically. Sort of like a tic-tac-toe grid. When you place this grid over your image, the rule states that your point of interest should be at one of the 4 intersecting points or along one of the lines. It is so frequently used that it can be seen as an overlay in many cameras' viewfinders as well as in Photoshop when cropping images. This rule exists because studies have been done that show that the human eye doesn't naturally go to the center of an image first. The human eye wanders around these points looking for something to draw it in. The theory is to not compete with what the eye wants to do, as it interrupts natural flow and what is pleasing to view. Following this rule helps your viewer with visual flow. It's unconsciously telling them where to start looking and where to go from there. When leaving your subject centered, many times, the viewer's eyes don't know where to go. This is especially true with landscape photography. You want the most important part of your image to have more weight. So if the important part of your image is the foreground, then you should have more of that in your photo. If the sky is more important, then you'll want to have more weight in the sky. Most importantly, the horizon line in the middle of an image is said to separate the image in half and not give importance to either the sky nor the foreground. However, reflections break the rule of thirds, with the horizon directly in the middle giving equal weight to the foreground and the background. Also consider utilizing the rule of thirds with animals or people when visually they need room. For example, when an animal is placed centered, there isn't room in the photo for them to breathe or for them to go. Nowhere for your viewer to see their danger or what their environment is that they're living in or what they may be looking at. Giving a little more negative space in this situation is appropriate for visual flow. A common mistake when learning the rule of thirds is to think that your subject should never be centered, which isn't true. Centering your subject seems like the obvious thing to do, which is why it can be perceived as boring or uninteresting. But remember, all photography rules are guidelines, not really rules. Centered composition isn't a no-no, it's just harder to do it well. There are times when you may want the simplicity of a more static image. In this example, the girl's face is overall centered. However, her eyes are in the upper third of the frame, giving it visual weight off-center. Simply placing your subject off-center alone isn't what the rules of thirds is trying to accomplish as a guideline. Without something else in the image for visual flow, it doesn't make sense to place your subject off-center. Center composition is good when your subject is isolated. The rule of simplicity carries more weight in this case. A good example of this is product photography. Imagine shopping for an item and seeing it off-center. This would be quite confusing. Simply composing off-center for no reason at all is just wasted space. Centering the subject on a plain background gives a clear picture of the product, and a white background doesn't allow the eyes to wander away from the subject. So in closing, remember you can often improve your composition by placing your subject off-center, but it is a guideline, not a rule.